Welcome back into the film room. I'm your host, Eric Turner. Today, I want to take a look at the drive by the Jaguars last week, late in the third quarter. It was a 13-play drive, a few penalties on that drive. I want to show you some of the plays and what they were trying to do to the Bills' defense, what led to the big fight in the corner of the end zone between Shaq Lawson, Leonard Fournette, and others, and how that momentum and those emotions at home propelled the Bills to the win against the visiting team. Now, a lot of people will talk about culture and momentum swings and how they do or don't exist. I'm one that firmly believes in both of them. If you watch this game, I would think that you kind of feel the same way about it. So let's start off with the first play. The Jags take possession of the ball at the 48-yard line. So they have a short field with 6:12 on the clock. It's 1st and 10. And you'll see them motion the receiver across the field to a 2-by-2 sit. And all they're doing here is just running a zone read. And the Bills sniffed it out. It's something that they had issues with in the first half with Fournette and Bortles. You're going to see Bortles take the snap, and he's just going to read this defensive end, Eddie Yarbrough, right here. And as Eddie crashes down, Bortles keeps it. But the Bills are assignment sound. Milano stays home. He has a quarterback on this play, and he makes a tackle. The other little wrinkle that they added to this, you'll see the tight end, number 80, is in line right there. They do what we call a Y release, and they're hoping to pull a defender out of the box by just releasing him instead of using him as a blocker. It doesn't work here. It worked in the first half with Trey White exiting the box with the tight end, but it didn't work here because the Bills made adjustments at halftime, and they had enough guys for the runner. That'd be Eddie Yarbrough there, and then the quarterback, if he were to keep it, which he does here, Bortles, Milano has him and drops him. All right, on to the second play of the drive. It's 2nd and 10. Clock is running. The Bills come out in what appears to be man coverage across the board. They have both corners in man posture, heads up over the outside receivers. You're going to have the slot player, Teron Johnson, manned up there. You're going to have Milano is actually going to be manned up on this tight end because they are bringing a blitz, a safety blitz, right here off the edge. And you'll see that from the tight camera angle. So they're man across the board. They're bringing 5-man pressure. And Bortles on the snap, after the play action fake, he is looking deep. He wants this deep shot to the bottom of the screen. But right before the ball snap, you saw Levi Wallace go into more of a bail technique and go into off coverage. And the receiver doesn't have leverage, so Bortles does come off that. He doesn't force it, even though it is against an undrafted rookie free agent. So his second target in this progression is the slot receiver, but Johnson does a good job of disrupting him, making that route difficult. You'll see him get right into his hip pocket, and I mean, that's just a good job. You know, he took some of the speed off of the route, and then he just got underneath. If Bortles wants to throw this, he's going to have to drop it in a bucket, and it's very risky, and you'll see the safety kind of jumping and leaning that way if Bortles were to target that receiver. So Bortles has nothing there with his first two reads in this progression. And what he tries doing is just dumping it down to the tight end who came across the formation as a blocker. But the pressure from Edmonds forces Bortles to get rid of it a little too soon, and that guy is not even looking at the ball. So you'll see that pressure off the edge from Poyer, number 21. After play action fake, you'll see him come down here. He's picked up pretty well from Fournette. So 5-man pressure, and you'll see Milano coming across the formation with his guy, but realizes he's blocking, so he kind of sits into a rat roll. So he's just going to sit into the middle of the field and read Bortles' eyes. Now, Tremaine Edmonds looks like he has sort of a green dog here, where the tight end and running back switch sides of the formation, and what he does is, because they're both blocking, he just blitzes, and it's a risky play. It's something he's done a lot this year, good and bad. And you see the tight end, who is his man now, you'll see him kind of throw a chip block at Starr. So Edmonds says, hey, I have an avenue to blitz, so I'm going to blitz. And that pressure is actually what forces Bortles to get rid of it. And thank God he did pressure when he was able to, because if that's completed to the tight end, that's probably a pretty big play. All right, next play of the drive. 3rd and 10 is exactly where you want the Jags. They're in a 3-by-1 set. It's a bunch set to the field. And the Bills aren't disguising it here. It's 3rd and 10. They want to play man coverage. They play a lot of man coverage on 3rd and medium to 3rd and long. because they wanted Bortles to throw into tight windows. You're going to have each of these players manned up. White is on number 1. Teron Johnson is on the number 2. You're going to have Micah Hyde, the safety, down here in the box. He's going to have number 3, which is a tight end. And then Levi Wallace is soloed against this receiver to the bottom of the screen. Single high set. Safety is really deep. Again, they're not disguising it. But what they are doing is they are showing pressure. They have pretty much everyone up on the line of scrimmage. You have both linebackers right here, and they're going to send them. It's a 5-man pressure with man coverage behind it. And it looks like even Milano, who has a running back here, he has a running back in man coverage. It even looks like he kind of gets a green dog where he's allowed to pressure the line of scrimmage or pressure the quarterback if that running back stayed in. So the Bills brought pressure. You'll see Jerry Hughes down here get a nice rush. He rushes wide with a speed rush, bends and flattens to the quarterback, but the tackle does a good job of just riding him wide. But Bortles barely is able to hit the top of his drop. The problem with this play is, even though it's really tight coverage across the board, you see everyone's pretty tight except this tight end, but even if he catches it here, I think Hyde chases him down. The refs call a flag on Teron Johnson here. He does hold him a little bit, so they get bailed out. The 3rd and 10 play, the good coverage, the good pressure, gets bailed out by the flag. Alright, so let's take a look at the pressure up front that was designed by the defensive staff. So what you're going to have is an odd front with Kyle Williams head up on the center, and he's going to dive into this gap. You're going to have Lorenzo Alexander slanting into this gap, and they're setting up the rush for Tremaine Edmonds. You're going to have Tremaine Edmonds loop tight to this slant by Kyle Williams and Lorenzo Alexander. And it's a good pressure, and it's one that shows right into Bortles' face, so he does kind of panic. He has that pressure from Hughes off the edge, so he pulls it down immediately. And you'll see the hold right here to the top of the screen. You see as the receiver tries cutting back outside, he does get held there. So I understand the call, but it's too bad because this was a nice pressure as Edmonds loops into the face of Bortles, and Milano cleans up at the end of the play. But the drive is extended, so now we move on to 1st and 10 with the clock running. And the Jags just run a simple wide zone run here, and they gain decent yardage. It's something they also ran pretty well in the first half. You're going to have just Fournette running the wide zone, the offensive line zone blocking to their left, with Teron Johnson actually blitzes off the top of the screen on a corner blitz, and Fournette gets a really good gain here. Now what this wide zone run is aiming at doing is taking all of these gaps that are assigned to certain defenders and move them horizontally, stretch them wide, test the integrity and discipline of these defenders. Can they maintain the leverage of their gap while those gaps are moving left to right or right to left? And the Bills don't do a really good job of maintaining the gap integrity. Good hustle by Jordan Phillips on the backside here. Helps chase the play down. And you'll have Edmonds also cleaning up at the end of that. But it's a decent gain on that 1st down play. So it sets up 2nd and 5 with the clock running. Alright, so they motion the receiver. Trey White follows him. Looks like man coverage. They run a little play action screen to Fournette. And Fournette gets the 1st down and is chased down by Harrison Phillips, the nose tackle here. See a little play action fake. And who I want you to watch is the center and the left guard. You'll see Bortles carry out the play action fake. The center and guard are selling pass, but then they are releasing to the 2nd level. Center is picking up the mic, Tremaine Edmonds. The left guard is picking up Lorenzo Alexander. They also get another lineman out there, so they actually have a 3-on-2 here when Fournette receives the pass. Just a good job of Phillips of keeping his head in the play. After that lineman releases, what does he do? He felt that soft. He turns and runs, finds the ball, and makes the tackle. So the Jags are in business. They're moving the ball pretty well here. See the clock now at 3:47 and running. They send out 21 personnel and run a wide zone. Some call it a boss zone blocking, where they're running outside zone with a fullback leading, and they're trying to get that fullback on the forced defender, which is a safety here, and you'll see it better from the tight camera angle. And this is just a great tackle from Jordan Poyer. So they have the wide zone run with the fullback leading out here. You're going to have Carlos Hyde stretching it wide. Bills are in their over front. They have Kyle Williams in basically a 4-eye technique, which is just inside that tackle. And the right guard does a heck of a job of reaching Kyle Williams there. You see he's quick off the snap. 1-2. You see get his hips right around and does a good job of sealing Kyle Williams off the snap, which doesn't happen often. This is a really good play by that right guard. You'll see the right guard lose ground with that first step to gain ground with a second step. That left step is right down the center line of the defensive lineman, and then he just moves laterally, keeps moving laterally, and boom, now he's in business. This run is in business. But the issue here is, while you have the combo block with the right tackle and the tight end on Shaq Lawson, they're getting movement there. They're getting these guys running. You see the right tackle peel off to Milano. He can't stay with Milano laterally. If this play is being pushed out wide, Milano is going to eventually break free here. But the play is made by Jordan Poyer here. This is a fullback on a safety here. And just watch Jordan Poyer time this. He's stretching it out. He's stretching it out. He's not letting the running back make a read or a cut until he really has to. Poyer hesitates here, right there, and knows he's going to have to sacrifice his body. He's going to have to do something to muddy up the waters, muddy up the lane for Hyde, so he can't just get outside. So what does he do? He dips his shoulder, dips under the block at the perfect moment where he's in striking distance, not only beat the block, but to make a tackle at the legs of Hyde. That's just a heck of a play by Poyer. It's something he did really well when he was in Cleveland. It's something he's done really well since he's been in Buffalo. Just a good job of timing this and making the tackle. So now we have 2nd and 12, clock's running. So now you have the Jags in a 2x2 set, and the Bills aren't really disguising right now. You can see Micah Hyde drop into the deep center, and he's deep. I mean, you have the safety, Jordan Poyer, down in the box. The corners outside are pretty much manned up. Eyes on the number 1 receivers on each side. I mean, they're showing man. Leonard Johnson is kind of giving a muddy read. He's inside leverage on this slot receiver, but it's showing as man coverage. So as the ball is snapped, Bortles sees that coverage after the play action fake. He sees that they got one-on-ones across the board, and with the safety incredibly deep, he wants to take a shot play here, and you can't blame him. Earlier in the drive, we saw Levi Wallace kind of bail right before the snap and go into off coverage. Well, here he's playing tight, and what does he do? He man turns to the sideline, so he's using the sideline as another defender. So Bortles likes this matchup, and he takes it, executes the play fake, and just launches it deep. And Moncrief does a heck of a job of giving his quarterback somewhere to throw. Normally you're taught to hold that red line about 3 yards from the boundary. He does a good job of that. Even though Levi Wallace is in his pocket, he still has that 3 yards out to his left side for the quarterback to throw to, for him to operate at the time of the catch. And you see the ball dropping in here, and he just goes up and gets it. And it's actually not a bad play, or coverage for that matter, by Levi Wallace. He just was not in a position to make a play to get his head around, but he was in a position to make a play on the ball, and he does. And some will say it was a simultaneous catch, and of course, if that's the case, it goes to the offense. Levi had a case saying that he had the ball at the end, he just didn't want to let it go. So you see the safety rotating deep, and the Bills are bringing a blitz. It's showing as a cross dog blitz. You'll see Milano right before the snap. He's going to shoot into this A gap, and then you're going to have Edmonds shooting into the other. So the Bills are bringing pressure. So Bortles does, the smart thing, and he just gets rid of the ball. And, it's a low percentage pass, or it's a low percentage play. But with this coverage, you're gonna give your guy a shot, and he does. Moncrief, it pays off. I mean, it pays off for the receiver, but it's also what led to the fight. You have Hyde standing over the top of those guys. Obviously, it led to the big melee in the corner. But what happened in the end was the defense and the crowd obviously got into it. All right, so the ball's at the 1 yard line, and it's all but given, right, that they're gonna score here. I mean, it's a goal line play, but the Bills defense rose up. They rose up to the occasion, and you're gonna see it here. I love the the set here by the defense. So you're going to have 4 defensive tackles in the game here. You're going to have Kyle Williams, Star Lotulelei, Harrison Phillips, who honestly looks like a small running back here because how low he is. He's in the A-gap, and then Jordan Phillips here. So you have 4 defensive tackles, and they're just shooting and sitting in these A-gaps. Why? To stop any type of QB sneak or any immediate run right up the middle. But I want you to watch what these guys do on the snap. They get low. You know what? The low man wins, right? Watch Harrison Phillips. I mean, he basically just jumps to the ground, and that guard has to just sit on top of him. Same thing with Jordan Phillips. You see those guys just muddy up that lane. Guess what? You're going to have to go up over the top of me with the run going to the left. So what does Star Lotulelei do? He slants and takes 2 players with him. He not only takes a center who's blocking back and muddies up the full block by that guard, number 68, who's pulling to his right a little bit, but the lead back, the fullback, number 40, also has to pick up Star. So Star was disruptive in a different way. He didn't dive at the legs of the offensive lineman to muddy the lane. He occupied here. And Kyle Williams, he's the guy that's muddying up the lane. You see him dive right into the knees of the offensive lineman. So the running back really has nowhere to go if he stays on the ground. Now, if this was Leonard Fournette, if he hadn't gotten thrown out of the game, you think he goes up and over this pile? Yeah, I think so. He's done it several times already this year. But this is Carlos Hyde. He doesn't. In fact, he hesitates once he sees the pile. And he sees Edmonds sitting in the hole. But I want you to watch Lorenzo Alexander, because he comes flying in with Star Lotulelei occupying those offensive linemen. You'll see Lorenzo, he's actually coming from depth, but he's clean, and he gets a shot on Hyde and stops the momentum of the newly acquired running back. So clock's running, 2nd down, and we have a penalty here. The tight end over here in the offline tight end position just moves right there. So the Jags are pushed back 5 yards. And you see Jordan Poyer at the end of that. You don't think this crowd is reeling right now? They're hyped. Look at them. He's getting them hyped. They know how important this is. So on to the next play. The Jags send out a trips bunch formation. You'll see Hughes is calling it out. He knows this wide receiver screen's coming. It's actually an RPO where they have a wide receiver screen to the bottom called, but they also have a run built in, this wide zone run that the Jags ran earlier in the game. Bortles simply takes the ball and launches it out to the receiver. But there's a flag on this play. There's a hold on Taron Johnson right here. So the Jags get marched back. And you'll see Hughes pointing out the play here. He knows it's coming, just unable to get his hands on the pass. But you'll see this is tough to defend. I mean, there's 2 receivers out there, and you have 1 free defender, but if it's not leveraged properly, which the hold by the receiver on Johnson doesn't allow Taron to properly leverage the pass here and keep it inside to force the cutback for Hyde, he eventually gets into the end zone. But again, doesn't count, so we move on to 2nd and 17. Now that it's 2nd and 17, all the Bills are doing now is they're going into their quarters coverage game where they just want you to throw it underneath and rally to the ball. The Jags are actually attempting to target this receiver right here, running a pivot route to the wide side of the field. But Johnson is in that pocket, and he drives on that, and it's taken away. So Trey White has the receiver up top locked down to the bottom of the screen. They're just matching 1, 2, 3, 4 on 1, 2, 3. So they're in their quarters coverage. They're just matching these routes. They're taking away the deep shots and forcing them to throw it underneath. Now, the concept to the bottom of the screen is simply a snag or spot concept. So you're going to have a little curl route here. You're going to have a corner route by the tight end to the back of the end zone. Then you're going to have some kind of little flat route here by the running back. So the Bills have 4 guys to that side of the field on 3 receivers. It's a very good job by Levi Wallace to the bottom of the screen. You see him in the bail technique, but his eyes are on the quarterback. But he has these receivers all in his peripheral, so he's seeing the field really well, seeing this route combination really well, and he reads it perfectly. He doesn't bite on that short curl route. Neither does Milano. Milano understands that the number 3 is going to the flats, so he needs to widen to the flats. And if the ball is going to go anywhere, it'd probably go right here in the hole. And the Bills are okay with giving that up and then just rallying to the ball. Levi Wallace takes away the corner. He's got help over the middle if that tight end were to go to the post. So it's pretty good spacing here. But Bortles is attacking the other side of the field. And eventually pulls it down, and Hughes gets the sack here. So look at the communication going on here. These guys are focused. They were driven on this drive after that big fight. And you'll see Jerry Hughes and Kyle Williams execute a little game. Now, whether it was freestyled or planned, I couldn't tell you. But what Kyle Williams does is he attacks this B gap and eventually hits the tackle and then goes after the quarterback. And Hughes is just playing off that. As soon as that contact right there is made, he feels the tackle setting deep. So Hughes just peels off back inside. And as Bortles pulls it down, he's able to bring him down for the sack. So good little game between Hughes and Williams. Obviously, they had a really good day when asked to do that. All right, so now we're on to 3rd and 17. Clock's still running. Jags motion the receiver across the formation, but the Bills are still playing their quarters 2 high safety look. It's pretty much the same exact coverage. They are not worried about the Jags getting the ball deep. They're going to minimize and rally to the ball. All right, so let's take a look at the concept here. After the motion, now the Jags are in a 2-by-2 set. You're going to have the number 1 receiver just going deep. The number 2 tight end is going to bend to the post. The running back is almost going to run like a wheel or a rail route, hoping to sneak up the sideline. To the top of the screen, the number 1 wide receiver is just going to run a crossing route here. And the number 2 is going to be doing a corner route here. So they are trying to push it down the field. They were probably hoping to get some kind of single high cover 3 look where they could sneak this running back out of the backfield, or even just hit it right up the seam versus a cover 3 look. But the Bills are in the same coverage. They're still in their quarters, and it's just good communication, good discipline and understanding of the route combinations being run here. So to the bottom of the screen, let's watch the linebacker Matt Milano and Tremaine Edmonds work the combination down there. So you're going to see Milano widen as that number 3 receiver, the running back out of the backfield, widens to the flats. That's exactly what he's supposed to do. But you see him, he doesn't just drive and close a space down here. Why do that? You play the no cover zone, let that running back come to you. If they want to throw it to him right now, that's a win. So he stops right around the 10-yard line. And that helps Levi Wallace underneath, obviously. You see Levi Wallace is bailing. He's right there with the receiver, but that helps undercut him and take away that number 1 wide receiver and essentially the number 3 here. Now look at Edmonds. What does he do? He's squeezing the number 2 with his eyes right there on the quarterback, and then he's going to sit right there, and eventually he would pass that on, that little post or that bender route. He'd pass that on to one of the safeties here. So he's in good position too. Now the only other person that the quarterback could have been able to throw to is this shallow crosser, but again, if they want to do that, he catches it, what, at the 12, 13-yard line? He's got a long way to go. No one's open, and Bortles takes a sack. Now, this is what I loved. You could tell they were so focused on this drive. Look at all the communication going on here. You have Teron Johnson to the left-hand side of the screen. Look at him. He's giving hand signals. You have Kyle Williams signaling something, maybe what type of game him and Jerry are going to be running here. You have Lorenzo Alexander giving some kind of hand signals here. And then Matt Milano, Micah Hyde, all communicating what coverage they're running, where their alignments are supposed to be. You see Micah Hyde right there communicating Johnson after the motion where he's supposed to line up. I mean, everybody is on the same page here. That motion changed the passing strength, so you see Milano and Johnson switch. I mean, there's so much going on in this play prior to the snap. And think about it. The crowd is into this. It's 3rd and long. And you need a play here. You need the stop. I mean, they were just on their game. The Bills' defensive line, they're in their wide 9 look. I mean, Lorenzo Alexander is in at defensive tackle. What you're going to see him and Murphy do is just speed rush outside. Murphy loses his edge right here as the tackle kind of just chops him down there. But Bortles, obviously, he felt that pressure once he got to the top of it. And with his eyes looking left, he sees the looping defensive end Jerry Hughes coming. Kyle shoots into that B gap, gets a piece of that tackle, and you'll see Jerry just loop inside. But what often occurs when these tech stunts are being run is that the jammer, Kyle Williams, often gets let free because the left tackle here is worrying about that speed rush of Jerry Hughes out wide. You see him kick slide wide, but what does that do? As Jerry Hughes goes to cut back inside, you see the soft inside edge of this right tackle. So a lot of times when this pass on is happening, the pass on from the guard to the tackle of Kyle Williams, there's a soft edge here. So he can rip through that, and that's exactly what Kyle Williams does. As Bortles sees Hughes flashing here, he drops his eyes, looks to escape, and Kyle Williams is sitting there waiting for him. Just a huge play, a big momentum swing for the Bills to get that stop to force a field goal here. And then with the score tied, here comes the kicker for the Jags, and he just shanks it. I mean, he just shanks it left. I mean, look at Poyer and White attacking this field goal. I mean, you don't think these guys are excited? Look at them. You don't think they're excited? Look at that crowd. This was a big drive for the Bills. And honestly, the emotions of that fight and how they defended their dirt, how they made those goal line stands, and, you know, put the Jags in these situations where they had to throw the ball with Blake Bortles. They forced him to pass the ball. He was unable to do so. Took some sacks, and it led to this missed field goal. And really, these emotions propelled the Bills to the 24-21 win.